Hello and welcome back to Hot Take here on No Bullshit, where we review the latest movies and give you our hot take on them. Today's topic is the long-awaited and much-anticipated Avengers Endgame, the culmination of 3 phases and over 20 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But does Endgame live up to all the hype? Because there sure is a lot of people counting on this flick to do well. We're going to talk about that today and more here on Hot Take. First, let me say, we are going to get to the Captain Marvel part of this movie. It's a very small part, but we are going to review it. I know that's been the talk of the town, and we've done a lot of Captain Marvel videos, so we're definitely going to talk about that in this review a little bit later on. But first, before we get started, let me thank you guys for 600,000 subscribers. We just reached that milestone over the weekend, and I want to thank you guys right out the gate because that's amazing, and let's go ahead and keep on rolling. So yeah, now, for today, let's get to the Avengers Endgame review. Minor spoilers ahead. It's really hard to talk about this movie without giving a few things away, but I'm going to try not to spoil the end or too many of the character arcs, just enough so we can get a good discussion going here. First, let me say right out the gate that this movie was excellent. It was fun to watch and a really good culmination of all these years we've been waiting for it. It was well done. It didn't let me down in any way, shape, or form, just maybe a few minor nitpicks. So any kind of negatives I would have are just kind of like, oh, this could have been better. I wish I had more of this. I wish I saw more of this person. A few little things like that. And besides that and a few other details, this movie was excellent. Really good, really fun, lots of good action, a great story, like something you've never seen in a story on these movies before because they did a 3-hour movie. So that's one of the details I mentioned. I know 3-hour movies aren't for everyone. Not the whole family's going to want to sit in the theater that long, and most people probably don't care about Marvel movies that much. But if you're into this stuff like I am and my wife, you're going to really love Avengers Endgame. So yeah, back to the 3-hour length. It's 3 hours, which seems long on paper, but the way this story goes, there's a lot of different sides to it. They start with one thing, they go over many different issues. Like it's almost like a comic book movie. I know these comic book movies have been around for a while, but the way it's done in chapter-like form, it seems like you're watching like 12 issues of a comic over a year, but it all happens in this one movie that admittedly is a little long, but it certainly doesn't feel long. Like I said, if you like Avengers, if you like the cast, if you like these movies before, it doesn't feel its length at all. For starters too, the original Avengers really killed it here. Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Hawkeye, and Black Widow, they're all in their true excellent form. They're doing awesome jobs. I want to particularly point out Thor and Hulk went through some great changes in this movie. Now, I really respect that when movie creators, they take those chances and they know when you have these characters in so many movies, you got to kind of change things up, make them a little different. And the way they did that with Thor and Hulk was awesome. Not to spoil too much, but basically Hulk becomes the Professor Hulk, where he's kind of like a combination of Bruce Banner and the Hulk. You know, usually the Hulk doesn't talk, but in this movie, he's talking just like he's Mark Ruffalo. So that was a cool change. And then for Thor, essentially Thor becomes a kind of a drunk. He gets a little beer belly. He grows his hair long and there's a beard. That's something you won't see in the trailers. They did a good job of hiding that in the trailers, but just for you guys to know, just for anyone that's curious, Hulk has a really cool story arc with that. Very funny as always, and I like the way they've taken Hulk into this funny direction. But overall, I'm gonna have to point out Captain America. Now, I may have some disagreements with the guy and the actor's politics, but I will admit he was awesome in this movie. Totally killed it. Probably one of the best parts. He just had a great arc. He changed a lot too, not as apparent or as aggressive as those changes I just talked about with the other guys, but yeah, Captain America has come a long way and he had a really good story in this movie. He steps up. There's a few scenes, like a really good fight scene, and then there's another part where he actually gets a new weapon, which is really awesome. So he gets this new weapon later on that I thought was great, and between that and all his story stuff, Captain America was probably one of the best parts. That brings me to the story summary for this movie. The story summary for Avengers Endgame goes like this. If you hadn't heard, this is basically a part 2 to Avengers Infinity War. That was the movie that came out last year, and the basic setup for that was there's this big new villain. He's a purple guy played by Josh Brolin. The character's called Thanos, and he collects these Infinity Stones, and I'm not too worried about spoiling the last movie. You guys had enough time to see Infinity War. Basically what happens is he collects the stones and he snaps his fingers, and 50% of the planet's life goes away. They just disappear. That includes humans, animals, everything. So 50% of the world has disappeared, and that brings us to this movie. You can't understand Avengers Endgame without watching that, because Endgame starts right after Infinity War, and basically the Avengers get back together, the Avengers that survived, and they're trying to save the world now. They're trying to bring those people back, the 50% of the people that left. From there, there's a lot more of the story. I'm going to try not to give away too much, but basically a lot of people had guessed the plan is Ant-Man comes in. He's been in the quantum realm for like 5 years. 5 years passed, by the way, at some point in there. And Ant-Man comes back and he really wants to get his family back. Like his partner, the Wasp, is gone, and like his Dr. Pym, he was gone too. So Ant-Man starts leading the charge, and he's the one that has this high technology. Like I said, he's in the quantum realm, and not to get too far into Ant-Man science stuff, but he basically gets really small, and then if you get too small, you go into this whole other reality, this whole other universe kind of thing. And he's the one that brings that technology to the other Avengers, and he starts making suggestions of how they can make this thing work, how we can bring people back. And essentially, again, I'm trying not to spoil too much, but they're going to time travel. So they're going to do some time traveling, and they go back in time, and they have a whole plan with that. I won't give away too much of that plan, but they do go back in time. And one of the coolest parts about this, time travel is well done here, and that's tough to do, okay? Time travel movies can be either really good or really bad. You know, Back to the Future comes to mind. Terminator has some time travel in it. Those are good ones, and those actually get referenced in the movie too. This movie has some really funny references. Good sense of humor on a side note. I didn't get there, but I think that's assumed with a lot of the Marvel movies. Like a lot of good characters, a lot of good comedy. But back to the time travel. Basically, they time travel and they have this plan. When they go back in time, they go back and you kind of like see some of the older movies again. Avengers movie and a few of the other ones where you kind of see the scene where it was 10 years ago or whatever, 8 years ago. And then it's the new characters and they're trying to do something else. And I thought that was really cool, really well done. And it also worked well for this end of this phase of the Avengers. You know, I was saying this is a culmination of like 20 movies, and it was cool to have this time travel story, and it gave them the chance to kind of like almost do some flashbacks, like almost do some like not really recaps, but just like, oh, remember this time, remember this scene. And the way that was done was really cool. So they go back to some of the older movies, and then bada bing, bada boom, there's a big spectacle at the end. That's pretty much all I want to give away. I just want to give you guys a little more of a tease, like a little extra from the trailer. So if you're on the fence about watching this, you know what's going on, and you might want to go see it. I would say recommend it if you have any interest. If you have the extra 3 hours, like plan out that time. But besides that, the movie's really good. As always, this Marvel movie has really good graphics, a really well done soundtrack, kind of a simple score, you know, nothing fancy, nothing to write home about. But every time that Avengers theme, like the main Avengers theme, and they've evolved it over each movie, and now when it comes in, man, I was like really feeling it. I was like really into the movie. It brought up like the emotions, like at one point at the end when the Avengers theme comes in and they're really starting to kick ass, you know, like they're really killing it. And then it felt so good. And then that brings me to another emotion. There's a lot of emotions in this movie, good and bad. As you might expect with it being kind of the end of an era, there's a lot of sad stuff in here. So I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I wouldn't say that ruined the movie, but you know, it definitely had its heartfelt moments. It had a lot of funny stuff too in the beginning, but lots of the end was sad. I was tearing up. I was like welting up in this. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, and oh my God, this reunion. Like there's a lot of moments like that, a lot of heartfelt stuff. But at the same time, like I said, some movies aren't for everyone, and some people might not like that sad stuff. Like they might not want downer at the end. There's a knock on points there for some people, not for me, but I understand if you don't want to do 3 hours, if you don't want something sad, like that's cool. Like I get that. Like sometimes people just want to have fun at the movies. There was some cool passing of the torch at the end of the movie too. Like I'm trying not to spoil too much, and I said not spoil so many times, but basically they pass the torch on a few things, which kind of like leads to some new movies. Captain America gives his shield to Falcon as he's going to be the new Captain America, essentially. Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like, so at the end, Guardians go and take off in their ship, and Thor joins them. So it seems like he's going to be in Guardians 3, or they're going to make it like a combo movie, something like that. That seems like the direction there. Yeah, the other thing I would note, and we know there's some other movies planned with Black Panther. He shows up at the end of the movie. Captain Marvel's in the movie. So let's get to the Captain Marvel stuff. I know a lot of people wanted to hear about that. That character's been very controversial. And as I predicted, she really wasn't in the movie that much. Like a lot of people expected, or it was almost implied in trailers, like she was going to be the one that saves the day and rescues everyone or something, like a kind of like Deus Ex Machina kind of thing. But no, really, she's in it for like 15 minutes, I think someone said online, like a very short amount of the movie. She's just here and there, a very minor character, comes in at the beginning, comes back at the end just cause. And that's kind of it. Like they just kind of threw her in there because she's part of the universe now and they want to set up her next movie. But one thing I didn't like, like she definitely still turns me off, and I know people are going to complain, and this isn't even a bad spoiler, but she gets the lesbian haircut. Like that's the haircut that the comic book Captain Marvel has had, like short hair, and she originally didn't have that. She didn't have that in this trailer either, but at some point when time passes, Captain Marvel gets the whole lesbian haircut. That's all I could call it, is lesbian haircut. And you know, it's kind of annoying, it's kind of lame, it's like whatever. I mean, I wouldn't say it ruins it, I just never really liked her in the first place, but that almost made it a little annoying. And then you could tell they're trying to get some LGBTQ stuff with that, so it got a little like, oh, okay, they're trying to put that in there. But again, she's barely in it. It's just like a few moments. But there is one other other moment tied to Captain Marvel where they pretty much do go girl power in the fight here. So the girl power part of this movie, it's very similar to what happened in Infinity War, and I've done a few videos about it. I did the SJW moments of Infinity War, and basically in the middle of the battle, all the girls get together for like no reason. Like the only reason is the movie makers, Marvel, or someone in one of the executives was like, oh, let's have a girl power moment. Like we're going feminist with Marvel. And that happens in Endgame too. At the end, out of nowhere, Captain Marvel is fighting someone and she's like, says, all of a sudden she's like, not by myself. And then every other girl character shows up behind her. And it kind of jarred me a little bit. This part of the movie was probably the lowest part of the movie. The one main complaint I have is because all the girls came together in this big giant fight, like out of nowhere. You knew the fight was really big in the wide shots and they were like all over the place. But then all of a sudden Captain Marvel says something. These girls all sync up on the battlefield for some reason. I don't know why Marvel wanted to do that. I thought it was unnecessary, but it was quick. It wasn't the worst thing, but you know, it's like, oh, goddamn. Another minor complaint I'd have with the movie is I really wanted more Spider-Man. I wanted more Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. They keep pushing Captain Marvel, but these are the characters that people really like. These are the ones we want to see. And even Spider-Man, he had a big part in the story. He was actually a key player as opposed to Captain Marvel just like showing up and doing this and that and then blah, 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 no reason. Like Spider-Man had this emotional connection to Tony Stark, and then Doctor Strange had a big part too. Like he was the one that kind of like saw the future and saw the way they could win this whole battle in the last movie, but it seemed like they were pushed to the side for this to do other stuff, and it's fine. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. It's already 3 hours, but I basically wanted more of those guys. With all that said, let's go ahead and get to the hot take meter. I'll easily give Avengers Endgame 4 flames out of 5. That's an 8 out of 10. It's a really good score. It might have been a little bit better. Like I think there's other Marvel movies that I like a little more. This isn't like the best of the best, but it's definitely like top 3, top 5. It's way at the top. It's really cool, but all the ones that came before are what really led to this. And then I think just with a combination of the sad endings and a few characters I wanted to see more, there's a few things in there, but minor nitpicks. Overall, really good movie. Thanks for watching this new episode of Hot Take, everyone. I want to go ahead and tease our next video. I could possibly, maybe, if you guys are interested, make an SJW moments in Avengers Endgame. That could be the next video. If you guys are interested in that, I have a few things I could say. I mentioned them briefly here, Captain Marvel's hair and the girl power moment, but there's a few other things, so I could make a whole video about it. And if you want that, hit the like button. Let's see if we can get 5,000 likes and I'll make SJW moments in Avengers Endgame. Until next time though, thanks for watching today's episode. We'll see you guys later.